stupid thing stop recording. Okay, so we know the slope. We plug that in for 5, right? All points are made up of an x and a y, right? So I can plug in, the y becomes a 7, the x becomes the 2, and I don't know the b, but I can solve this for b, right? So I got 7 equals 5 times 2 is 10, plus b, so b is going to equal -3. So I know my answer is y equals 5x minus 3. What was kind of a downside of this method? It's longer. Why is it longer? Because what they gave us did not lead us straight to slope-intercept form, right? This is the type of problem I want to talk about today. Because while we have slope-intercept form of equations, oops, that's not what I wanted, hit the wrong button. This is the one I wanted. While we have slope-intercept form of y equals mx plus b, there is a different form, and we call it point slope form. What do you think the difference is? What do you think the two pieces of information, what are the two pieces of information you need to use slope-intercept form? You need slope and you need the y-intercept. In point slope, what two pieces of information do you think you're going to want? Any point and a slope. And the equation is this, and you may want to write this down. It's actually just y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1. Now, it looks longer, okay? It looks longer. It definitely is longer than y equals mx plus b. It looks more complicated. But I would argue that it's actually easier. Because as soon as you understand what it means, as soon as you understand what all the different letters mean in there, it actually is really, really, really easy. What do you think the x1, y1 are? That's the x and the y from the point. And then the m is just the slope. So that exact same problem that we just did, this one here, where they gave us the slope is 5 and the point 2.7. If this was the problem, yes, can we do this in slope-intercept form? Absolutely. But a different method. Is simply this. You write y minus, what's the y coordinate of the point? 7. Equals, m is the slope, x minus, what's the x coordinate of the point? You're done. That's the equation. This is the equation in point slope form. Now, can you put equations from in point slope form into slope intercept form? Can I go from this form into y equals mx plus b? Absolutely. What do you think I have to do to this side? Just distribute. So if I distribute, I'd get 5x minus 10 equals y minus 7. So I just distribute that side, and then how do you get rid of the minus 7? You add the 7. So I would get y equals 5x minus 3. Now, here's where we need to talk. What's the goal? If the goal is to graph this, when we did this equation here, and we did it to put it into y equals mx plus b, this was one method. How do you graph any line? Like if I told you to graph y equals 5x minus 3, where would you start? You'd start on the y-axis at negative 3, wouldn't you? And then from that point, you would just count up 5 over 1, wouldn't you? You'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1, up 5 over 1. What if I said you didn't have to start on the y-axis? Could you have just drawn the graph straight from that given information? How? Where do you start? You start at the point 2, 7. So instead of starting on the y-axis, you just start at the point 2, 7, which is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you start here instead of here. But then you count slope 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. Or back 5, or down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back 1. Will I end up with the same exact line? You're just starting in a different spot. So the point slope form, I think, is a way easier method of doing problems like this, where you're given the slope and any point on that line. So let's say I give you slope is -0.5 and point is -3/4. And all I said was write an equation of this line. Sure. If I say write an equation of this line, any equation of this line, can you just tell me the answer right now? There's no calculation to be made. What's the answer?
Y equals -1/2.
Well, if I wanted to put it into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, there's a lot more work to do here. Yes, I know the slope is this, but do I know the b? I don't know the b. I'd have to find the b. But if I just said, write any equation of this line, well, instead of using y equals mx plus b, now we just use point slope. So it'd be y minus the y, which is 4, equals -0.5, the slope, times the quantity of x minus the -3. How do you minus the -3? You add 3. You're done. You can go straight from the slope in a point straight into an equation. Now, if the goal was to put it into slope-intercept form, now you would have a choice. You could write this, which I think is really easy. You could distribute, and then 1/2 times 3 would be 3/2, and then you'd have to add the 4. Adding 4 is the same as 8/2. 8/2 plus -3/2, you'd get this. This would be one way to get to here. Or the other way would be you'd have to plug in the point for x and y, solve for b, and then put your answer in there. I don't think either method is all that difficult, but you would have a choice there. Now, what about this scenario? What if I gave you a point and another point? I don't want to do that one. I want to do, we'll go, say I gave you 2 points and said write an equation of that line. So if I give you 2 points, what did I not give you? Slope. Well, how do you find the slope if you're given 2 points? You could plot them and then count the rise and the run. Or, what's the slope formula? You just subtract the y's, so 8 minus 9 over 7 minus 6. 8 minus 9 is negative 1. 7 minus 6 is 1. So my slope is negative 1. So I just use the slope formula to find the slope. Now, how many different equations can I write of this answer? 2. One answer would be y minus 8 equals negative 1 times x minus 7. What would another answer be? Y minus 9 equals negative 1 times x minus 6. I can use either point. I can use the 7 and the 8, or I can use the 6 and the 9. If I solve these, if I simplify these two, should I get the exact same thing? Isn't this one line that's just going through these 2 points? I better get the same thing. So if I distribute here, negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 6 would be plus 6. Y minus 9. How do you get rid of that minus 9? You add the 9. What's 6 plus 9? So I get y equals negative 1x plus 15. Well, what would happen if I distributed here? I get negative 1x plus 7. And then, how do you get rid of a minus 8? You add the 8. And you get to negative 1x plus 15. So sure enough, you would get the exact same thing. Now, if your goal was just simply to write any equation, can you see where the point slope form would just make your life way easier? I can just go straight to that answer right now. If your goal was to get an answer in slope-intercept form, you would have a choice. No matter what, you're going to have to find the slope, right? Like that's it. This part of it is a done deal. There's no way to avoid this other than plotting the points and counting the slope. One of the 2 ways, you have to find the slope. Then you would have a choice. You could use point slope form and write one of those 2. Or we can do what we did before, where we take one of the 2 points and we write in y equals mx plus b. Let's say we had that, and now I figured out my slope is negative 1. I can use this, y equals mx plus b. My y is the 8. My x is 7. I can solve that for b, and that's another way to get there. I don't know about you, but I think this method can be a little bit harder. I look at point slope form as an easy way to get right to any equation. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, everybody take a look at page 345. Let's do a few of these. Super easy. Number one, they gave you the slope as 1, and they gave you the point 1, 0. 3, 4, 5. 345. Now, this one they want us to draw the graph, but what would the equation be? Y minus 0, which technically I guess don't have to write, equals the slope x minus 1. Now, if I want to draw the graph, where would you start your graph? I don't know about you, but I would start right at the point 1, 0, which would be right there. And what's the slope of 1 look like? It means you go up 1 and over 1. Up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1. Draw the line. Easy enough? How would you do number 4? They gave you the slope as 1/5. And they gave you the point 2, 6. What's the equation? All they want is the equation. What's the answer? Oh, it's -6. What's the answer? Y minus a -6, which would turn into +6, equals 1/5 times the quantity of x minus 2. And you're done. Does everybody see how I went from here to here? It's not a difficult thing. It's just putting numbers in certain places. What's the only difference between number 4 and number 13? So they didn't give us the slope. So what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to find the slope. So use the slope formula. And then which point do you use? Whichever one that floats your boat. Whichever one you want to. Okay? If you look at number 19, they give you 3 points, don't they? What points should you use? You're gonna have, let's do number 19. Yeah, there's a story problem. They want the answer in slope-intercept form. They give you 3 points. They give you 0, 3. They give you 10, 5. And they give you 15, 6. Which points do you use to find the slope? Whichever one that floats your boat. So let's say you use these 2. So my slope is going to be 6 minus 5 over 15 minus 10. So that's 1/5. If I said write the answer in slope-intercept form, can anybody tell me the answer right now? It's y equals 1 over 5x. Do I know the b? You should. You really should. Okay. Let's say point slope form. Let's say point slope form. Mac, which point you like the best? 0, 3? Great. Point slope form. Y minus 3 equals the slope x minus, well, 0 is just 0, so you get y minus 3 equals 1/5 times x, and then the 0 is just gone. Wouldn't you just add the 3? Why did this end up being 3? Where is that point? If you plotted that point, 0, 3, where would it be?
0.
Wouldn't it be right on the y-axis? So isn't that going to be your y-intercept? Be on the lookout for things like that. If you see this, they gave us the y-intercept. They didn't tell us it was the y-intercept, but you had to recognize that it was the y-intercept because it was the point 0, 3. If this number is a 0, then it's going to be a y-intercept, isn't it? So sometimes you just kind of have to recognize that, yeah, they did give us the slope-intercept form. You had to recognize that one of the 2 points is your y-intercept. If you look at number 18, are you going to have to find the slope? Yeah, they give you 2 points. They give you 0, -2, and they give you 2, 8. Yes, you're going to have to use the slope formula to find the slope, right? Did they give us any other piece of information in there?
No.
Look,
Y-intercept.
they gave us the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept?
0,
It's -2. Like, that is the y-intercept. I know if my job is to write it in slope-intercept form, I know before I even start that the y-intercept is -2. I know this because that point is a y-intercept, right? Now, I'm going to have to find the slope, plug that in for m to get my slope-intercept form answer. I don't even know what is the directions for number 18. What do they want it in? Oh, they do want it in slope-intercept form. Now, are they always going to give you a y-intercept? No, that just happened to be one. If you look at number 15, did they give us a y-intercept for number 15? No, neither one of those 2 points is a y-intercept. So now you're going to have to find the slope, right? Let's do number 15. So what are the 2 points? 1, 1. And -5, 3. So how do you find the slope? 1 minus 3 over 1 minus a -5, which gives me -2, 6, or -1/3. I know part of my answer now. Part of my answer is y equals 1/3 x. But I don't know the b. How do I finish this problem? I have 2 choices. I can use method 1, that we learned yesterday or last week, where you pick a point. Let's use the -5, 3. And I plug in everything I know into y equals mx plus b. I know the y is 3. I know the m is 1/3, negative 1/3. I know the x is negative 5. And I solve that for b, right? That's one method. Or I now have a second method. And that's to use point slope form. Use the same point. It would be y minus the 3 equals my slope x minus the negative 5. And then yes, distribute, simplify. Solve for b, plug the answer in for b. Which of these two methods do I want you to use? Whichever one that you look at and go, oh, I think that's easier. I think this one's easier to distribute and then just add the 3. I think this one's easier to solve for b, multiply those together, subtract the answer to the other side, and then put that answer in there. I don't care which method you use. I personally would probably go with this one. I think that one's easier. I think going point slope form is just really easy to do. Okay? Mac, you might like this method better because you practiced it, you were good at it last week. Randy, you might like this method because I know that you recognize where to put the numbers, it's easy, distributing's not that hard. I don't care which method you use. Okay? Are we good with this?